let's go back to one of the main stories for you this afternoon, which is the fourth installment of the State Capture Report. Let's bring you some more reaction and a bit of analysis. This report was released a little bit earlier today, handed over to President Mpumelelo Cyril Ramaphosa in Pretoria. Now, I'm joined this hour by attorney Mpumelelo Zikalala from Zikalala Attorneys. Mpumelelo, good afternoon. Thank you very much for your time. The part 4 is out. It covers, we understand, I haven't read it yet, but Aviu Mtila, my colleague, our senior reporter, was there, and from his report, it's very clear. It's covering about 6 areas, including ESCOM, the largest 2 volumes in there about ESCOM, but there's also issues around the Free State, the asbestos and housing scandals of way back when MEC of housing then was Musebenzi Zwane, before he went to national government. It also covers an attempt to capture the national treasury. It also covers EOH and the relationship there with Zizi Kodwa, who's currently a deputy minister in government, plus issues around the city of Johannesburg. So very, 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 very broad, but it is only part 4. And I guess some of the names are coming out of this, Mpumelelo, are not surprising. But the big question is, on the recommendations and action going forward, I mean, what should be happening next? I mean, the NPA has got its hands full.
Definitely. And one wonders whether they're going to be able to deal with the amount of work that has been dealt or given to them. Another point which has been covered by the report is the relationship of the former president, Bob Jacob Zuma, and his delegation of duties in terms of appointing, which I must state on record, it is alleged, by the way. Now, the report seems to be insinuating that when it came to the appointment of ministers, came to the appointment of certain board members, it is not upon the sole discretion of the former president that those particular members were actually appointed. They were put in there to fulfill certain instances and certain duties. And that speaks directly to one of the terms of references in which it is alleged that he wasn't really exercising his power as the statement. There were other individuals that were there in the background whispering into his ears and saying this is how things are supposed to move, and that is why we have this particular problem that we have today. But another thing that also we must look at, which I saw while reading the report, is various legislative proposals which have been made. One of saying that whenever tenders are going to be evaluated, if there's someone who's been selected on the basis that they can do the job, meanwhile their qualifications have proven otherwise, even those individuals that partake in that decision are supposed to be held accountable. Now, if that is approved and there's some legislation which is passed by our legislatures, it's going to be very serious implications for our bid adjudicators, bid evaluators, because we may see them being implicated in the near future whenever decisions of this nature have been taken. So it is certainly going to prove to be a moment task for our government, especially the president, in making sure that he is able to take these recommendations and make them alive.
Yeah, and that's just one of several recommendations that have been made in the other parts, while we're still waiting for the final part, as we hear, that's going to come in June. But there are also recommendations about more investigation that must be done, Mpumelelo, into these allegations of corruption and state capture. I mean, we've been waiting for this report, but as these bits and pieces are coming out, it just shows about the mammoth task that lies ahead in implementing its findings and recommendations.
But I think one of the questions that we should ask ourselves is, couldn't we have handled this particular process in an alternative manner? Let's look at it this way. We've spent close to about billion rands, if not more. We have spent about plus minus 3 to 4 years dealing with the same matter. Now, the key individuals or the key structures which are meant to be oversight or to provide a role of oversight in any government matters have not been called to come and give explanations as to why they had failed. In South Africa, we have perfect, very good laws or legislative provisions in certain instances. However, it is the button pushers which are missing. It's the individuals who are going to take active action in terms of making sure that we hold those who are supposed to be held accountable and they account at the end of the day. Maybe in the final part of the report is going to come in, but I certainly hope that in the last part of the report, we must have some indication of Where was the Auditor General when all of these things were happening? What was happening to the recommendations of the Auditor General? Let's then move over to SCOPA when it comes to its oversight powers of saying, let me check what each and every single department is doing. As they're doing now in ESCOM, why didn't they do that earlier? In instances where they've seen that things are not going in an appropriate manner, why did they keep quiet? Or is it a matter that they could recognize what was happening but could not act? The same could be applied with regards to MPEC when it comes to municipalities. Most importantly, our law enforcement agencies, this particular information must have been in the public domain. What did they do with it at that particular point in time? Let's remember, Praden, the quality and the quantity of evidence is crucial when it comes to criminal matters, because the burden of proof is that if you go to court, you must be able to prove beyond reasonable doubt that this particular individual or this particular entity is guilty. Now, you can't go there limping when you don't have the adequate evidence which will be able to bring you that guilty verdict that you are looking for. Most importantly, monies were involved in this matter. By the time we try and pursue all these individuals that were paid millions, by the time we get to them, we may find that they're broke by now. Now, the question is, are we going to institute these civil recovery proceedings in time in order for us to be able to get where you want to get to in time? My issue is this. Let's hear the side of the law enforcement agencies. Let's hear the side of the National Prosecuting Authority and ask themselves, or we must ask this one question. Is there anything which was impeding you at that time in performing your duties? If the answer is yes, let's deal with those particular issues, because those structures are there purely to protect us from these type of findings that you are finding, which is why if you read the whole report, it will tell you one constant thing from report number 1 up until now. There must be further investigations into this matter. Now, if you keep on referring to further investigations into an entity which does not work, we are going to be back to square one. We'll be having the same discussion 10 years from now on a different type of state capture.
In a way, it's like, as I'm listening to you there, Mpumelelo, it's like bittersweet. And let me explain myself. The sweet side is what you've just explained, that this whole state capture inquiry has led us to see the details of a dysfunctional state or government and all challenges and competencies, as you say, or lack thereof. That's fine. So we are seeing whether it has exposed it. But on the bitter side, I remember interviewing Thuli Madonsela, the former public protector, who's the one who penned the state of capture report that led to and proposed or recommended rather as a remedial action the setting up of this commission of inquiry. Its original intent, its original terms of reference was not everything else that ended up being viewed since 2017, as you say. It was around investigating how the family of President Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma went into business with the Gupta family and then gave the power to them or influenced them into the government. That was really what it was about. It was never about all the other things, but then everything else unraveled. And it looks like in the middle of everything else, sometimes we're beginning to lose focus. Was this over R1 billion worth it? Hearing what you've said now, and just my observation?
It pains my heart to say this. Maybe in terms of the awareness, I would say yes, but in terms of real remedial action, which can be tangible, I'd say no. By now, I would have expected that 4 years after this whole inquiry has started, so a person would have been convicted, there would be monies that would have been recovered, there would be strong reforms in terms of how do we select people to be board members, there would have been strong reforms as to what do we do when it comes to oversight facilities or oversight structures. Let's allow individuals who are qualified, who are knowledgeable in that particular subject matter, to be the ones who are going to be an oversight authority or structure in the entities that we have, especially state-owned entities. Now, what we find is that we are coming back to square one with all these allegations which we keep cropping up here time and again. A perfect example is the COVID-19 regulations and the COVID-19 procurement scandals. It simply proves that our structures are not up to par in terms of making sure that they're able to prevent these things from happening, which is what we want at the end of the day. Our structures are not up to par in terms of being able to investigate as soon as possible, apply preventative measures so that at the end of the day, we don't speak of recoveries. We speak of individuals that were trying to defraud our government, however, have been caught. That's the type of headlines in which we should be heading to. And it shouldn't take us 4 years and close to R1 billion to come to that particular conclusion. In this case, it was clear. And let's also look at the powers of the commission. They don't have powers to arrest or to declare someone a criminal. The only thing that they can do is purely recommend, which is what they are doing. So they are saying, after 4 years, after R1 billion, the only thing we can say is that NPA take over and go and investigate. The most painful part in that, maybe in part 5 is going to come out, is what was the NPA doing all this time? Aren't we maybe pushing the duty of investigating this type of matters to an entity which is itself is dysfunctional, is not going to achieve what we want to achieve as South Africans?
Thank you very much for your initial insights. Then reaction to part 4, the release of part 4 of the state capture inquiry. That's Mpumelelo Zikalala from Zikalala Attorneys Incorporated.